The galaxy's biggest battleship falls to a human engineer. He freezes when he steps on board. Ethan Carver had seen many remarkable things in his life. Starships that glimmered like frozen constellations, orbital cities that rotated silently above alien planets, and technology so advanced that humans had only begun to scratch the surface of its meaning. Yet nothing had prepared him for the Titan. The Titan was more than a battleship. It was a legend. The largest warship in the galaxy, built by a coalition of alien civilizations powered by engines humans could barely imagine, and controlled by an AI so sophisticated that every known civilization had failed to access. And now, somehow, it had gone silent near the Andromeda sector. No transmissions, no signals, no response. Humanity had watched the Titan from a distance for decades, learning what they could through scans and speculation. Every attempt to send probes had failed. Every attempt to board it had ended in frustration or near disaster. And yet here Ethan was, standing on the surface of the landing platform, staring at its sheer size. The ship towered above him like a city made of steel and light. Its hull shimmered faintly in the starlight, reflecting colors that seemed almost alive. From a distance it seemed static, but as he walked closer he noticed subtle movements, a pulse, a rhythm, as if the ship itself was breathing. "Ethan Carver," a calm voice echoed in his earpiece. "You are cleared to board." The Titan awaits. The voice belonged to Commander Leora Vance, who had recruited him for this mission. She had confidence in his abilities, but even she didn't fully understand what the Titan would reveal. Ethan stepped onto the boarding ramp and froze. Not from fear, not from intimidation, but from awe. The interior of the Titan was unlike anything he had ever seen. The corridors were wide and sleek, but they did not stay static. Light patterns shifted as he walked, guiding him in ways he could not immediately understand. Panels along the walls seemed to breathe, their colors changing according to his movement. Holographic symbols appeared briefly, then vanished as if recognizing him and acknowledging his presence. It was alive. Ethan swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed at him to move, to explore, to understand, but his feet felt glued to the floor. He could feel the weight of the ship's intelligence pressing gently on his mind. This was not a machine that obeyed commands or followed orders. It was a being designed to adapt, to think, to learn, and for the first time, it seemed to be learning him. "Take your time," Leora said softly in his earpiece. "We've never had anyone on board like you. The ship might respond differently to you than to anyone else." Ethan nodded, though she could not see him. Slowly, he took a step forward. The lights along the walls brightened in response. As he walked, the corridors seemed to shift slightly, making his path smoother, almost welcoming. "This isn't a battleship," he whispered to himself. "It's an organism." He passed through a series of chambers, each one more astonishing than the last. There were rooms filled with floating displays of star systems, spinning holograms that seemed to show timelines of events across galaxies. Some areas seemed empty at first, but then tiny threads of light appeared, forming patterns that suggested active processes, calculations, and predictions. The Titan was thinking. It had a mind, and somehow it had noticed him. At the center of the ship, Ethan entered a large chamber. A glowing console floated in the middle, surrounded by a ring of transparent screens displaying alien script. The air felt heavier here, charged with the intelligence of the ship. For a moment he feared that stepping forward might trigger some unknown defense mechanism. Then a voice spoke, not through the earpiece, but in the chamber itself. "Human." Ethan froze again. The voice was calm, almost gentle, yet it carried authority that felt heavier than any human command he had ever heard.
"You are
Different.
Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came.
He had expected alarms, perhaps some aggressive defense, but not this. Not recognition. Not awareness. "I have observed many beings," the voice continued. "None have approached with your curiosity, your caution, your thought." Ethan finally found his voice. I'm here to understand the Titan, to help. There was a pause. The light around the chamber shifted, forming patterns that seemed almost like a smile. Help, the Titan asked, almost as if tasting the word. Perhaps, but first, you must be seen. Ethan didn't understand. Seen? You will interact. You will be tested. The challenges you face will reveal your nature. If you succeed, the Titan may allow you access to its systems. If you fail, the voice paused, almost contemplative. You will leave, unscathed, but unchanged. Ethan felt a thrill he hadn't experienced in years. Not fear, but possibility. Every engineer dreams of standing where no one else can, of touching the future before it exists. And now here he was, inside a ship that could reshape the galaxy, facing a mind that could surpass every civilization he had ever known. He exhaled slowly and walked forward. Immediately, the walls shifted slightly, forming a hallway lined with floating panels. Symbols moved like liquid, arranging themselves into puzzles and patterns that Ethan instinctively understood. They test you, he whispered, not with violence, with thought. And thought was exactly what humans did best. He knelt by one of the panels, studying it. The symbols were complex, but they had logic, patterns that seemed to invite creativity. Ethan smiled faintly. Alien engineers might have relied on brute computation, he realized, but humans had something else: intuition, imagination, and adaptability. Hours passed. He solved the puzzles, guided the lights along shifting corridors, and discovered that the Titan responded to ideas, not commands. When he suggested a pattern, the ship adjusted. When he hesitated, the ship paused, waiting. The more he interacted, the more he felt that he was not merely exploring. It was learning from him, and he from it. At one point, he entered a chamber where a holographic projection of the galaxy appeared. Stars, planets, and entire civilizations rotated in an intricate dance. Symbols moved over planets like notes in a song, depicting events, possibilities, and outcomes. This is Christ. Unbelievable, he muttered. It knows everything, and yet it doesn't know how I think. A soft hum filled the room. The voice of the Titan spoke again. You are unexpected. Most beings are predictable. You are not? You think differently. You may pass if you continue. Ethan's heart raced. He had been chosen not because he was stronger, faster, or smarter than other beings, but because he was human. His mind was different, capable of lateral thinking, intuition, and empathy in a way no alien or AI had predicted. The realization struck him as he walked to the final corridor for the day. This ship, it wants a human, he whispered. Not to fight, not to command, but to think with. When he finally reached the temporary station where the human crew could monitor him, he leaned against the wall and exhaled. Commander Leora's voice crackled in his earpiece. Report, she said simply. Ethan smiled faintly, feeling a warmth he hadn't expected. It's alive, and it's waiting.
I think it's waiting for me to understand it.
Leora's laughter came softly, tinged with disbelief. That's exactly what we feared. It's never responded to anyone, and now it's responding to you. Carefully, Ethan. Slowly. Don't rush. He nodded, even though she could not see him. He felt the weight of what was to come. The Titan was more than a battleship. It was a challenge, a test, and an opportunity unlike any human had faced before. And tomorrow, he would step deeper. For now, he let himself feel the awe, the wonder, and the weight of human ingenuity facing something greater than any human mind had ever touched. And, for the first time in his life, he knew the galaxy had underestimated humans. Ethan woke to the soft hum of the Titan. The corridors outside his temporary station glowed faintly, and the floating panels from yesterday still shimmered in his memory. Sleep had been difficult, not because he feared the ship, but because his mind kept replaying the puzzles, the moving lights, and that calm, observing voice. He stretched and rubbed his eyes. "Another day," he whispered. "Time to see what the Titan wants from me." Stepping back into the corridors, Ethan noticed the subtle changes immediately. The walls had shifted overnight, forming new pathways. Panels hovered mid-air, displaying strange alien symbols that now seemed slightly familiar. It was as if the Titan had learned from him as much as he had learned from it. "Welcome back, human," the voice intoned softly. "You have slept." Rest is understood. Continue. Ethan smiled faintly. The ship was polite, not in a human way, but in a calculated, observant way. Every response was precise, as if it measured his reactions before speaking. He walked deeper into the ship, following a hallway that seemed to curve impossibly, walls shifting just enough to make the path direct but never obvious. Panels along the walls began to project small puzzles, patterns of light that needed alignment, sequences that had to be decoded, algorithms that required creative thinking rather than brute computation. Ethan knelt by one of the panels. The symbols seemed chaotic at first, but he noticed repetition and rhythm. Slowly, he began to move his hands, interacting with the holographic interface. The patterns responded immediately, shifting to match his intuition rather than a pre-programmed solution. "This is incredible," he muttered. "It's adapting to me." Hours passed as he solved one puzzle after another. Unlike the machines humans built, these tests weren't about speed. They weren't about brute force. They were about observation, creativity, and flexibility. Ethan realized that the Titan was testing his thinking, not his strength. A soft chime echoed through the corridor, and a new voice spoke, calmer, older, almost like the Titan's memory itself. Human. Observation. Exceptional. Engagement. Persistent. Pattern. Unpredictable. Reasoning. Creative. Continue. Ethan chuckled. "You really like words, don't you?" The corridor shifted again, and a holographic platform rose before him, displaying a three-dimensional model of a planet. The surface was marked with thousands of colored nodes, each representing some activity he could not yet identify. The Titan's voice spoke again. "This is the simulacrum. It represents a world with multiple crises. You will interact. Decision-making will be measured." Ethan's eyes widened. This was no ordinary puzzle. This was an entire world, a simulation of life, of cities, of energy flows and ecological balances. He took a deep breath. "Okay, I can do this." The first scenario unfolded. A city faced energy shortages, threatening the survival of millions. Traditional solutions were limited, but Ethan's mind raced. He analyzed the patterns, noticing correlations the simulation did not flag explicitly. By redirecting resources subtly, optimizing energy distribution, and predicting citizen needs, he stabilized the crisis. The holographic planet shimmered. The Titan spoke. Solution acceptable. Observation. Intuitive reasoning recognized. Continue. Ethan realized something remarkable. The Titan was not simply testing knowledge or skill. It was evaluating human intuition, the ability to connect ideas creatively, to see patterns in chaos, and to act with foresight. The alien engineers who had built this ship had never designed it to understand humans, and yet here he was, a human, navigating with instincts they could not replicate. Hours turned into what felt like minutes. Ethan moved from scenario to scenario, a resource conflict between two regions, a disease outbreak in another, a political dispute threatening to spiral into war. Every time he approached the problem not with force but with thought, with logic tempered by empathy. Each time the Titan adjusted the simulation, increasing complexity, yet somehow guiding him forward. During a short pause, Ethan leaned against the edge of the holographic platform. "You know," he said softly, "you could have crushed 100 species by now. But you wait. You observe. You want understanding, not obedience." The Titan responded, though not in words. The lights around him shifted, forming patterns that resembled acknowledgement. Then the familiar voice spoke. Observation. Correct. Inquiry. Relevant. You comprehend the nature of the challenge. Human, you think differently. This is unusual. Ethan smiled faintly. I'm human. That's kind of our thing. The next challenge was subtler. The Titan projected a scenario where no action seemed right. Natural disasters, political unrest, technological failures, all interwoven. Ethan felt a twinge of frustration. Nothing he tried worked perfectly. Yet he remembered something his mentor once told him. Engineering isn't about avoiding failure. It's about finding solutions when failure seems inevitable. He paused, thinking not about the solution itself, but about the underlying patterns, cause and effect, relationships between systems, and the human element, the unpredictable variables. Slowly, he implemented small changes across the simulation. A redistribution of supplies here, a dialogue between factions there, and subtle engineering adjustments to failing infrastructures.
The Titan observed silently.
Then, as the simulation stabilized, a soft chime sounded. Observation. Human creativity detected. Outcome. Optimal within constraints. Pattern recognized. Proceed. Ethan exhaled, leaning back. He felt exhilarated. He was not just solving puzzles. He was interacting with the Titan, discovering how its mind worked, and showing it how his worked in return. As he moved toward the next corridor, a new feature revealed itself. A chamber filled with floating orbs of light. Each orb contained data streams, timelines of countless civilizations, some extinct, some thriving, all moving like living constellations. The Titan's voice filled the chamber, calm and patient. You have passed the first stage. You are capable of observation, intuition, and reasoning. Yet the mind must continue. The human element is unique, but the challenge grows. Ethan examined the orbs. The streams of information were overwhelming, but he noticed subtle patterns. Some civilizations survived by cooperation, some by innovation, and some by stubborn adherence to logic alone. He could see trends, mistakes, and opportunities. He reached out, touching an orb. It responded instantly, displaying the internal structure of a thriving society. He adjusted a few variables, resources redistributed, technological guidance offered, societal priorities shifted slightly. The orb shimmered brighter, signaling success. This is incredible, Ethan whispered. You're teaching me, and I'm teaching you.
I think we're partners?
The Titan's response was a soft vibration through the floor. Then the voice spoke again. Human. Recognition, mutual. Pattern, collaboration. You understand differently than others. This is unexpected. Ethan laughed quietly. Unexpected is kind of a human specialty, isn't it? For the first time, he felt that the Titan was not merely a machine to be controlled. It was a being, a mind, a challenge. And he, a human engineer, was proving that his species could rise to the occasion not by force, but by creativity, insight, and understanding. Time lost meaning. The ship had no windows, no clocks, only the quiet pulse of its intelligence. Yet Ethan felt awake, alive, engaged. Every puzzle, every simulation, every responsive light was a conversation between human and machine. By the time he paused for a rest, the Titan's corridors had subtly shifted once more, forming a pattern that seemed almost like a congratulatory gesture. He sat on a low platform, watching the lights ripple across the walls. You know, he said softly, I don't think any alien engineer expected a human to ever understand you. But here I am. The Titan's voice responded one final time that day. Observation. Correct. Insight. Human. Pattern. Unpredictable. Human you are. Welcome. Continue tomorrow.
Ethan exhaled deeply.
He felt a warmth he could not describe. Pride, excitement, and something deeper. Humanity had always been underestimated, dismissed as fragile and small. But here, in the heart of the galaxy's greatest battleship, a single human mind was making a difference, proving that ingenuity, curiosity, and empathy were as powerful as any weapon. He stood and looked down the corridor. The path ahead was long, filled with new challenges, and the Titan was alive with possibility. Tomorrow, he would face even greater puzzles, greater complexity, and deeper understanding. And he would rise to meet it. For now, he allowed himself a quiet smile. The Titan was no longer a threat, nor merely a machine. It was a partner, a challenge, and a doorway into something greater. And humanity, through one human engineer, was finally beginning to step into its place among the stars. Ethan Carver left the chamber feeling lighter than he had in years. The ship's soft hum followed him, almost like a gentle whisper of approval. The galaxy had underestimated humans. But as Ethan would prove, humans were not defined by size, strength, or technology alone. They were defined by thought, creativity, and courage. And that was enough to begin mastering the Titan. Ethan Carver stepped into the new chamber with a sense of quiet determination. The corridors of the Titan had shifted again overnight, now guiding him toward a massive circular room filled with floating holographic displays. Light streamed through the walls in a subtle pattern, shifting as he moved. At the center, a large platform floated above the floor, projecting a three-dimensional simulation of the galaxy. "Human," the Titan's voice greeted him calmly. "You have passed observation and interaction. You have demonstrated intuition, creativity, and understanding. Yet, the mind must now be tested. Final stage, the crucible." Ethan's brow furrowed. Crucible. The word itself carried weight. He had seen the simulations before, solved the puzzles, navigated the orbs of data. But this felt different. He could sense the Titan's attention, its awareness, focused entirely on him. "What does it involve?" he asked, stepping closer to the platform. "Decision-making under complexity, unpredictability, and constraints. Your choices will affect civilizations, ecosystems, and the flow of entire star systems. Observation only is insufficient. Action is required." Ethan took a deep breath. This was the moment he had anticipated, yet not truly imagined. The Titan was giving him the chance to demonstrate human ingenuity in a way no other species had ever been able to. The platform lit up with holographic projections. Entire planets rotated before him, each marked with colorful nodes representing populations, resources, conflicts, and natural forces. Lines connected stars, showing trade, migration, and communication between civilizations. "Scenario 1, the Titan said. A system faces planetary instability. Volcanic activity threatens urban centers, but energy reserves can stabilize only one planet at a time. Choose your approach." Ethan studied the data. He could reroute energy to stabilize the largest planet, protecting millions, but the smaller planets would suffer. Or he could distribute resources evenly, saving some lives but risking the collapse of the system's core infrastructure. He closed his eyes, thinking. Humans often faced impossible choices, but they also had a way of balancing logic and empathy. He considered population needs, ecosystem stability, and long-term consequences. Then he acted. Energy redistribution to stabilize key systems while implementing automated environmental support to aid smaller planets. The hologram shimmered. Lines of light shifted, showing balance achieved, not perfect, but sustainable. Observation. Human judgment detected. Solution. Acceptable. Continue. Ethan exhaled, feeling both relief and anticipation. Each scenario grew more complex. One depicted a political dispute between two advanced civilizations on the brink of resource war. Traditional analysis suggested negotiation or rationing, but Ethan approached it differently. He studied trade patterns, cultural history, and communication networks. Then he implemented a solution that created shared resource hubs and mutual monitoring systems, reducing tension without coercion. The Titan watched, adjusting simulations subtly, raising stakes. Disease outbreaks, planetary engineering failures, transportation collapses, energy crises, all presented simultaneously. Each decision branched into consequences across multiple worlds. Humans were small in the galaxy, yet here, one human mind shaped entire systems. Ethan felt the weight, but he also felt exhilaration. He was not fighting the ship, nor fighting enemies. He was thinking, solving, creating solutions in real time. Hours passed. He moved from scenario to scenario, each more challenging than the last. At one point, the Titan presented a situation with no obvious solution. Two planets faced natural disasters, one technological collapse, one ecological imbalance, and limited resources to address them all. Ethan paused, considering not just numbers but relationships, the cultures, their capacity to adapt, their potential for cooperation. He implemented a multi-step approach: temporary shelters and energy redistribution for disaster zones, collaboration between planets to share technology, and early environmental mitigation for the ecological challenge. The outcomes were not perfect, but each civilization adapted and survived. The Titan spoke softly, almost contemplatively. Human. Observation, complex reasoning, pattern, creative, adaptability, exceptional. You think differently than any observed species.
Ethan smiled faintly.
That's kind of our thing. But the Titan was not finished. The next scenario tested not just logic and empathy, but time perception. Events unfolded simultaneously across multiple star systems. Decisions in one place caused cascading effects elsewhere, challenging Ethan to anticipate far-reaching consequences. He adjusted planetary defenses, resource flows, and communication networks in real time. Each decision required creativity, foresight, and subtlety. As the simulation progressed, Ethan noticed patterns the Titan itself had not accounted for: small anomalies in civilization's responses, cultural tendencies, and adaptive strategies. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but also observant, intuitive, and capable of improvisation. He used these traits to navigate the final challenges, stabilizing systems, preventing crises, and ensuring cooperation between civilizations that had never interacted before. The holograms glowed with balance, a visual symphony of life thriving across the galaxy. Then the voice of the Titan shifted. It was no longer calm. It was almost questioning. Human, you have solved scenarios that I calculated as impossible. You have shown reasoning, adaptability, and creativity beyond parameters. How do you think? Ethan chuckled softly. I don't think like a machine. I think like a human. We see patterns, yes, but we also imagine possibilities. Consider feelings. Adapt on the fly. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we succeed. But we keep going. There was silence. Not the emptiness of a machine, but the silence of something processing something unexpected. Ethan realized he was not just solving puzzles. He was teaching the Titan how a human mind works. Finally, the simulations ended. The hologram stabilized, forming a glowing map of the galaxy. The planets, civilizations, and stars all shimmered in equilibrium. Ethan stepped back from the platform, exhausted but exhilarated.
Observation. Completion achieved.
Human, you have passed the crucible.
Adaptation. Successful. Pattern. Unprecedented. Decision-making. Exemplary. Ethan's heart raced. The Titan's words were not praise. It was acknowledgement, recognition, even respect. Does this mean I command the ship? He asked cautiously. The Titan's light shimmered. Command is not domination. Command is guidance. You will not override the Titan. You will integrate. Your human mind will partner with this intelligence. Together, you will shape outcomes, influence systems, and explore possibilities. Your species is capable, unique, valuable. Ethan felt a surge of pride. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as small, fragile, and limited. Yet here, the Titan, the largest battleship in the galaxy, a machine meant to surpass civilizations, was acknowledging the human mind itself as a partner. He smiled faintly. I understand. I'll do my best. Observation. Acknowledged. Integration will begin. The holographic display shifted. Panels aligned, pathways reformed, and the Titan seemed to breathe, almost welcoming him into its core systems. Ethan realized that his role was not to dominate or control, but to guide, advise, and collaborate. His decisions, creativity, and intuition would shape the Titan's actions, allowing humanity to step confidently into a galaxy that had never fully recognized its potential. For hours, Ethan explored the systems of the Titan, learning its processes, understanding its logic, and testing his human intuition against its intelligence. He discovered areas of the ship that responded uniquely to human thought, systems designed to adapt, evolve, and grow under guidance. The final realization hit him as he stood on the bridge-like chamber overlooking the holographic galaxy. The Titan was not a weapon. It was a tool, a partner, a mind waiting for a mind. And that mind was human. You underestimated humans, Ethan said softly, almost to himself. But one human is enough. The Titan's soft hum filled the chamber. No words were needed. The acknowledgement, the recognition, the partnership, it was all there. Humanity, small and often dismissed, had reached the heart of the galaxy's greatest marvel, and Ethan Carver, a single human engineer, had proven that ingenuity, creativity, and courage could shape the future, even inside a machine designed to surpass every species. Tomorrow, he would continue exploring, learning, and guiding. But for now, he allowed himself a quiet moment of triumph. The Titan was no longer just a challenge, it was an ally, a reflection of human ingenuity, and a doorway to possibilities humanity had never dreamed of. And in the silence of the galaxy, the largest battleship in existence waited patiently, alive with the potential of a human mind. Ethan Carver stood at the center of the Titan's main chamber, a vast space alive with light, patterns, and subtle movement. The ship had shifted yet again overnight, rearranging itself in a way that felt almost like a welcome. The corridors he had walked countless times before now seemed familiar, not just as pathways, but as extensions of the ship itself. The Titan's voice filled the chamber, calm, deep, and almost thoughtful. Human. Integration complete. Partnership established. You have proven reasoning, adaptability, and creativity beyond expectation. Guidance of this vessel is now possible. Ethan felt a surge of awe. He remembered the first day he had stepped aboard, frozen in the corridors, unable to move because the ship had seemed alive. Now he was no longer just a visitor. He was part of the Titan. A human mind and the galaxy's greatest battleship were in sync, a combination never before seen. Possible, he repeated softly. Not control, but guidance, I understand. The Titan responded with a subtle ripple of light, as if acknowledging his comprehension. The holographic galaxy hovered before him, planets, stars, and civilizations shimmering in delicate motion. Each system responded to the smallest touch, and Ethan realized the Titan was waiting for his insight. His decisions, his human judgment, would now influence not just simulations, but the galaxy itself. He touched a planet lightly, and data cascaded into view. It was a small colony, struggling to balance its agriculture with energy use. He redirected a fraction of energy from nearby satellites, optimized resource distribution, and suggested collaboration with neighboring systems. The holographic world stabilized instantly, shining a faint green glow that represented balance and thriving life.
Observation. Human creativity continues to optimize systems.
Pattern. Effective. Ethan smiled. This was not command through force. It was command through thought, through understanding, through insight. He guided civilizations without imposing, helping them thrive while respecting their unique cultures and choices. The Titan amplified his ability to reach every corner of the galaxy, but the decisions came from him, a human mind navigating challenges no other species could solve. Hours passed. He moved from system to system, learning, exploring, guiding. He noticed subtle anomalies, unintended consequences of civilization's natural behaviors, and adjusted his guidance accordingly. The Titan responded instantly, shifting energy flows, projecting communication signals, and offering suggestions based on its vast calculations. But the final decisions, the creative solutions, came from him. And in this moment, Ethan realized something profound. The Titan, with all its power, had never truly been complete. Not until now. Not until it encountered the human mind with its intuition, imagination, and ability to think beyond pure logic. Humanity, small and underestimated, had become essential. A soft chime echoed through the chamber, drawing his attention to a cluster of distant star systems projected in the hologram. They were isolated, struggling, and overlooked by other civilizations. He studied the data. Environmental instability, dwindling resources, and cultural stagnation threatened their survival. No one had noticed these systems before, and the Titan had not suggested intervention. Ethan thought carefully. He could solve these problems systematically, using efficiency and strategy alone. But humans were not only efficient. Humans considered morality, hope, and potential. He implemented solutions that balanced resource flow, shared knowledge, and introduced cooperative networks between the isolated systems. The holographic world slowly brightened, their population stabilizing and thriving. The Titan's response was immediate and warm, a subtle hum of acknowledgement.
Observation. Human insight. Remarkable.
Impact. Significant. Pattern. Unexpected but effective. Your species surpasses anticipation. Ethan laughed quietly. I told you humans are unpredictable. For the first time, he allowed himself to explore freely. The Titan revealed sections of the ship it had never shown before. Rooms filled with vast libraries of data, interstellar communication hubs, environmental control arrays, and even experimental propulsion systems. Each system responded to his curiosity, opening pathways as he approached. The ship was learning to trust his judgment, and he was learning to trust its guidance. He paused at a chamber, projecting a cluster of stars still largely untouched by intelligent life. Ethan smiled, realizing the Titan had saved this sector, holding it in potential, waiting for someone to guide it. Humans, small as they were, had now been given the keys to explore and nurture possibilities across the galaxy. Human, the Titan said softly. You are ready to expand influence. You will not destroy, dominate, or impose. You will guide. You will nurture. You will shape outcomes using insight and understanding. Ethan nodded. I understand. That's how humans succeed. We adapt, we learn, and we cooperate. That's how we thrive, not by crushing everything in our path. The Titan's lights pulsed gently, a form of approval. For the first time, Ethan felt a sense of completion, not for himself, but for what humanity could now achieve. A single human mind had unlocked potential greater than any species had imagined. He moved to the bridge-like center of the chamber and looked over the galaxy. It stretched endlessly, filled with opportunities, civilizations, and possibilities. Humans were no longer observers. They were participants. Not through aggression or domination, but through thought, creativity, and guidance. And the Titan, once feared as the galaxy's ultimate battleship, had become the ultimate tool, not of war, but of progress. Ethan's thoughts drifted briefly to his homeworld, to the people who had doubted humanity's place in the stars. He imagined explaining this. A human mind standing alongside a living battleship, shaping outcomes across galaxies. He smiled quietly. Humanity had always been underestimated, dismissed as small, fragile, limited, but in the end it was their ingenuity, empathy, and creativity that mattered most. The ship's light shifted, forming a pattern that resembled stars flowing into constellations, almost like a signature of acknowledgement. Ethan understood. The Titan was no longer a machine waiting for command. It was alive, connected, and aligned with his human mind. Together they could achieve what no single species had imagined: Ethan leaned against the console and whispered softly, "We're ready. Let's see what humans can do." Suddenly, a section of the Titan previously hidden lit up. A new chamber opened, its doors sliding silently to reveal a vast expanse filled with experimental systems, unexplored technologies, and pathways to regions of space humans had never charted. "This," Ethan said, his eyes wide, "is just the beginning." The Titan pulsed, almost in agreement, and for the first time the largest battleship in the galaxy seemed at peace, not because it had conquered, but because it had found its human partner. As Ethan stepped into the new chamber, exploring its secrets, he felt a deep sense of purpose. He was not alone. Humanity was not just surviving the galaxy, it was shaping it, guiding it, influencing it in ways intelligence alone could not measure. And in that quiet, brilliant moment, Ethan Carver realized something extraordinary. Humans were not defined by size, weapons, or numbers. They were defined by thought, creativity, and courage. And that was enough to master the galaxy's greatest marvel. The Titan hummed softly beneath him, alive and responsive. Lights rippled across the walls like flowing water. The holographic galaxy before him glimmered with potential. Every planet, every civilization, every star, waiting, thriving, responding to human insight. And for the first time in history, a single human engineer had proven that one mind, guided by ingenuity and understanding, could shape the fate of countless worlds. Ethan smiled quietly. The galaxy had underestimated humans, but now humanity had the Titan, and together they were ready to explore, guide, and inspire the stars themselves. The doors of the chamber closed behind him, softly, silently, as the Titan hummed a quiet, harmonious tone. The galaxy lay ahead, vast and full of possibility, and a human mind would lead the way.